considering Mortal Kombat has been one of the biggest fighting game franchises of all time, it is also one of the most disrespected fighting game franchises of all time within the confines of the fighting game community. So today I'm gonna have a look at some of the reasons why over the years, and yeah, what is it with the rest of the community sort of hating on Mortal Kombat. So before I can comment on how Mortal Kombat is the most disrespected fighting game, I have to go all the way back to 2009 when Street Fighter 4 was released on PS3 and Xbox 360, right? So this was considered the renaissance of fighting games. They'd gone through a dark ages and now they just released Street Fighter 4, which brought everybody in, which is essentially the backbone of the fighting game community. About Street Fighter, I don't know how well everything else would do. They're sort of like, they bring everyone together and they're also the biggest community. So yeah, with this is where like the foundation of the modern fighting game community lies. So we need to know where they're all from, right? So got that point out there. As well as that, there are also various other games floating about that all play in a very similar sort of fashion to Street Fighter. They'll all have like DP motions, they'll have fireball motions, there'll be back block, things like that. The characters will play a very similar sort of thing, like fireball, anti-air, stuff like that. And this is a very common theme amongst traditional fighting games within the fighting game community. J Bold in the comments if you're still watching. Subscribe. That's right, I'm over here now. So anyway, fast forward to 2011. There have been obviously years of legacy being built up in Street Fighter 4, Evo Champions crowns, Evo Championships lost, and then Mortal Kombat 9 releases, right? And this is it comes out, and at this point in time, because there is no NRS scene, like the scene you know now does not exist. This is the very beginning. The players from Street Fighter would be the ones that would be like known first within the game. As you can see here, Flo versus Justin Wrong, both prominent Street Fighter 4 players at the time. And I think, yeah, it's sort of where they were the ones dominating very early in the game, because they were all the ones playing the fighting games and all that. It was seen like there is no presence in NRS games for them to have to worry about. So it's sort of like, yeah, we play Street Fighter, we're just going to come over there and win all your shit, and that's it. We're just going to walk off into the sunset with your prize money. But after a certain amount of time, there began to be players emerging that were clearly about NRS games, and eventually the hold that the Capcom players had over NetherRealm started to fade. And I think there's only really a handful that are actually, I don't even know if you could consider Chris G like a Capcom guy first, because I know that he used to like compete in UMK3 and all that. So I'm just saying we're claiming him. All right, we're claiming him. But the other Capcom heads, they may dabble a bit, but they never stuck around enough to like truly learn the nuances of the game and how to win in these games. And eventually I think that means they just left, because the ones that did stick around and the ones that did start to emerge became like the NRS versions of what these players are. With it being a new game and having new top players, and eventually like phasing out the J-Wongs and the low type of players that were just popping all these other new traditional fighters that would come out, I think like it wasn't too disrespectful at that point. It was more just like everything else had been a given, like who was going to be the top, who was going to be good in these games, unless it was something like Tekken, which is a different world. I think when you have a traditional sort of fighting game, you can kind of tell who's going to be good at it. This wasn't your traditional game, and it also wasn't a Tekken. So I think because it was 2D still, people kind of had the notion that, you know, these players would be good. And other than that, MK9 was jank. It had some jank in it, right? Not to say that the games that these players came from didn't have jank, because their games are fully jank as well, probably equal if not more amounts of jank. But it's unfamiliarity at that point. So like in MK, a down poke doesn't start a combo, but in a game like Street Fighter or anything else that is a traditional fighting game, it does. So I think that's probably like baseline, maybe like fundamental reason that like starts off why the game's not respected so much, is because it's not tailoring to the norms of these other traditional fighters. Like it's not back to block, for example. I remember specifically that being a point of contention for people that didn't play MK. They're like, this game's got a block button. That's stupid. It was either like it's too good or it's not good enough. And it's like, where are the cross-ups? Like, where are the cross-ups? Imagine if you're an MK player and you're hearing someone saying, where are the cross-ups? It's just a bit outlandish, but it's like that in reverse. And I think that's sort of where it started bubbling up to start with. That's right, I'm back over here again. So anyway, the next point I'm going to talk about is like the gameplay loop of MK games. So, you know, I was saying about how in Street Fighter you can use crouching pokes to initiate a combo or whatever, and you can't do that in MK. Another thing that people used to complain about was the fact that Mortal Kombat has dial-in strings. And they're saying this limits the freedom of what you can do in the game. I remember that being a talking point. It's like limiting the freedom of what you can do in the game because you can't do this into that, into this, into that, right? You can only do this string into this. But I think what they're missing at that point is the nuance of how these strings work in this game. So you have obviously your pokes to set up your strings to set up your pokes and whatnot, but it's all about, yeah, it's all about which one are you doing to set up which other option. And if you look in Street Fighter, it's essentially the same sort of thing. People are doing block strings to set them up to be in a space where that somebody might counter poke with a medium, and that medium will whiff. Do a similar sort of thing in Mortal Kombat, or you might do a string into some scenario where the game becomes you're going to poke or do this or that in that scenario. It's the same thing. It's the same but different. No, it's same but different. And I think that was a point that was missed. And I think when you start adding all of these things together, people get like compounding pet hates or whatever, or it might even just come down to basic human psychology, you know, in group, out group. You're part of that group over there. My group's better. Like, that's just scientifically proven thing about humanity. But I think if people were to actually look at the nuances of the game a little bit better, they'd see that it's still just a fighting game in the end. Another thing is the clashing of projectiles, right? So in Mortal Kombat games, you throw two projectiles together, they don't clash, they just pass through each other. Yeah, so that means that the projectile game is totally different to something like a Street Fighter, where like a Guile and a Ryu throw a Hadouken and a Sonic Boom and they clash, and one of them might be at advantage because they can do their next move faster or whatever. In MK games, it'll be, okay, so this one might have projectile that goes under that one. This one might have one that goes over that one. This one might recover faster and start slower and blah, blah, blah. They're all gonna just cross paths and trade damage at the end. So the nuance in Mortal Kombat games when it comes to projectiles is mostly about where are you standing, when are you shooting, and why are you shooting. I mean, it's not to say that there isn't nuance in Street Fighter, because there obviously is. Like, I'm not saying that, but the difference in it is it's quite a bit different. Okay, so now I'm going to fast forward to MKX. In 2015, which was MKX's first Evo, everything was great. Can't really make too many complaints because everything seemed to be done a bit more within our own community. So we had ESL, Warner Brothers was pumping out tournaments left, right, and center. And I think that meant that we had to rely less on the community as a whole. But by 2016, when these sort of things started to, you know, phase out a little bit, it became a bit more obvious. So like, if you look at Evo, this is going to be a lot of anecdotal evidence if you want, or like from my experience, because during this time I was actually able to get out there and experience all these things. You look at Evo in 2016, right? We had a tournament section within the hall. If you've ever been to Evo, you know everywhere has got their own little, it's like having a little block in the event, and it's a big venue or whatever. But for some reason, us and Smash, which Evo obviously don't like Smash as well, rightfully so, but yeah, we had our things so separate from the stage that we were playing on, it didn't really make any sense. So, like, the hall is massive, by the way. It's massive. You're talking a long walk from one side to the other, which means that there's going to be communication errors and whatnot. And I think this is a bit of it was an unnecessary sort of thing to have going on. We'd be playing on literally one side of the hall and playing on stage on the other side of the hall, and then there was so much miscommunication about who's going to play up on stream, and then players are running back and forth. There's no chairs, and they're sat around for 11 hours just waiting to be told what's going on. 11 hours. So like, that's a pretty long stretch if you're playing in a tournament. It's a marathon. Most tournaments are like that. Big tournaments are marathons in the end, like that. People don't really talk about that, like about how it's an endurance race. It's not a sprint, you know. I think, yeah, that was like the first sort of point where I was like, okay, they're doing this like when it's not really necessary, because you compare it to the other events that are going on in the same venue, all of their stuff is lined up. It don't really make any sense. Like, why would ours be like offered like this, as if it was such an afterthought? But it is what it is at that point. I think I vaguely remember, this is also anecdotal, I vaguely remember some people saying that, like, yeah, the people in charge of Evo at this point they're not actually actually that bothered about MK, so yeah, they kind of just tar him off and let him do whatever. However, that's not to say that all events were bad like this. If you look at Combo Breaker, which is run by Rick the Haddo, he is an MK fanboy as well. He loves Killer Instinct, he loves Mortal Kombat, and he always gives them a fair shot at a stage and whatnot at his events, which is obviously now one of the biggest majors in the world. So props to the Haddo, he does a great job. I just think at this point in time in like the community, yeah, the wider community is starting to just, you know, alienate MK a little bit, even just through the way that the tournaments were set up. But if you were there, it's kind of hard to articulate. If you were there, tell me I'm right here, because I know I am. Like, I know these things happened. There was definitely some sort of, like, you know, stick MK in the side room. You know how they have Melty Blood tournaments and they make the meme that Melty Blood was held in a toilet? Mate, we were a couple of steps off at some of these events, and just the way they were run for us. But maybe it wasn't, maybe it was a bit more uniform. Maybe some other events were like that, but I was never really hearing these sort of things in this point in time. But I'll go on and point out an even bigger case of like how MK was disrespected at Evo or MK11. Right, so MK11 2019 Evo. This is when all of my suspicions were pretty much confirmed. So bear in mind, I'm going to talk specifically about 2019, yeah? So I know we're playing 20 something else in the background, but 2019 Evo was the biggest Mortal Kombat tournament. It was a tournament of all time. Tournament of all time. So anyway, yeah, it was the biggest tournament of all time, and that was also the third biggest tournament being played at that Evo. And this was, I think, the third year, or maybe the third year that Evo had this big arena play out all of their top eights. If you've ever been to Evo, you know what I'm talking about. You buy your ticket to enter the arena on the Sunday, watch the top eights. MK11 for some reason had its top 8 on the Saturday in like the common sort of area, the common arena. So it didn't really make sense why other games with less entrants, and this is the first year of MK11 as well, so less entrants, older games were allowed to play their top 8 on the big arena screens in the massive center, whereas the third biggest game wasn't. It just doesn't make any sense at that point. And I think, hey, that pretty much to me confirmed it. Like, you know, at least the major tournaments, they're sort of like trying to just, you know, give us a bit of shit. Yeah, that's pretty much like my tinfoil hat prediction on what's going on in the tournament side of things, right? So yeah, I reckon on the tournament side, they were deliberately being given us a bit of ag. There's no reason. Like, there's no reason. Can you comment a reason why you think the third biggest game having its biggest tournament ever would not be worthy of being playing on the main stage while the other games were? And that's not to say that we hadn't already been on that main stage before, because that's where the final MKX Evo was held. So yeah, it was actually the 4th year that they've been in that arena, and that was the one where Tekken Master and Sonic played. So they should have, by that logic, like, we were the first ones on that 2016 Evo as well. First in the morning, I think it was 8 in the morning they were doing the top 8. Right, fair enough, it weren't the biggest game then, you kind of justify it. But when you're the third biggest game and you ain't even in the main arena for your top 8, that to me is just a bit disrespectful, isn't it? So what do you reckon? Okay, so my final point about why the Mortal Kombat games are disrespected is because I think it's to do with FGC culture, right? And it's very Japanese-centric, which means a lot of the players within the community are a massive bunch of weebs, right? And that has significance because a lot of the fighting games that come out are like they're the traditional fighters, and they're Japanese-produced, and they all follow a similar sort of like art style and the way they play and whatnot. And I think because a lot of the community are weebs, they're not gonna like something that is Western created like MK. I can't even think of another. Killer Instinct is like the only other Western game I can think of that people even play. If you can correct me on that, maybe I'm missing something right now, but I'm pretty sure that it's like Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, and that's it. And they'll come out with things like oh yeah, we don't like the animations and blah blah blah, but like, come on, some of these other games have got some turd animations in there as well. It's like there's a disconnect with these games in the violence of fighting as well. It's just something I've noticed. This is just something I'm waffling on about. It's like they disconnect the brutality of fighting, which is something I think a lot of Mortal Kombat fans sort of like, is the exaggeration of the brutality of fighting. Obviously, your head ain't exploding and you ain't got 20 rib cages going all over the places when you're getting beaten up. But I think keeping the visceral edge and making it a fight makes it more interesting than watching a couple of schoolgirls dressed up in maid outfits sweeping each other with brooms. You know what I'm saying? If you're a Melty Blood player, definitely got my like side eye on you, by the way. If you know about Melty Blood lore, you'll understand why, like, if you understand. But yeah, what do you reckon? Like, what do you think the reason for this is? Because it doesn't seem like there's any, except for MK1, right? MK1 it's got its reasons why it's like down in the gutter in the tournament scene. But the other games all had great moments and good attendance, and even like amongst the top players of games like Street Fighter and Tekken and that, MKX was a highly respected game. I think it's when you come to more of the like the mid-level player or like the average player within the FGC, they sort of have like it's almost like a hate boner for MK games, and I'm failing to understand why, especially when players from our games aren't like that with their games. And it's strange because nobody can come into our games and start winning, but our players go out into their games and start winning, and it's been done multiple times. Dragon did it, Sonic did it, that's it, K7 did it. Like, there's plenty of people that have done it, but yet the disrespect and disdain for MK remains within the fighting game community. Obviously, it's just, that's my perspective within the community. They're like globally and commercially, Mortal Kombat sort of blows everything else out of the water. So I mean, they got that going for them. In an ideal world, it'd be good for probably everybody. Like if there was more cohesion amongst all of these communities, it'd bring more C to the FGC. You know what I'm saying? Because there ain't really anything horrific going on in the MK community. Actually, yeah, now saying that, it's probably better we ain't involved with Smash and Strife and Melty Blood. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, appreciate you all hanging around for my videos. I really do. And if you got anything you want to say, cuss me out on this, cuss me out on that, say whatever, obviously you're a knob, yeah, just do that. And don't always subscribe, what you're doing, sort it out. And yeah, hopefully you come back for the next one, listen to me waffle about some Mortal Kombat shit next time. Appreciate it. All right, take care.